Growing up, my brother Jake was my hero. When kids at school picked on me for being smaller, he would step in without hesitation. When our dad passed away when I was 12, Jake promised he would always look out for me. We built tree houses together, shared our deepest secrets, and swore we would never let anything come between us. So when Jake called to tell me he had bought his first house with his fiancée Sarah, I could not have been more excited for him. This was supposed to be our family celebration. Before I tell you what happened that night, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like button if you have ever felt judged by people who barely know you. Make sure to subscribe because this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming, including me. I was under the hood of a 1967 Mustang when my phone rang that Tuesday evening. The garage was quiet except for the soft jazz playing from my old radio. I had been working on this particular car for weeks trying to get the engine purring just right for Mrs. Henderson down the street. She reminded me of my grandmother, and I never charged her full price. Jake's name flashed on my screen, and I smiled as I wiped the grease off my hands. We had not talked in a few weeks since he moved in with Sarah. I figured he was calling to give me details about the housewarming party he had mentioned. "Bruce, hey," his voice sounded different, strained. "I wanted to talk to you about Saturday. The party, I am really looking forward to it, man. I already picked out a gift. Remember how Dad always said a man's tools were his most prized possessions? I found this incredible handcrafted toolkit that I think you will love." There was a long pause. Too long. "About that, Bruce. Sarah and I have been talking, and well, her family is going to be there. Her parents, her sister Jessica. They are all pretty accomplished people." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Okay, what does that have to do with anything?" Jake cleared his throat. "Her dad, David, is a partner at Williams and Associates. You know, that big law firm downtown. Her mom, Patricia, is a cardiac surgeon at St. Mary's Hospital. Jessica works in investment banking in Manhattan. They are used to a certain kind of environment." I sat down on my work stool, still not understanding where this was heading. "Jake, what are you trying to say? Maybe it would be better if you sat this one out, Bruce. Just this once. Sarah is nervous about what her family might think, and I do not want anything to be awkward for her." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My brother, the person who had defended me against every bully, every cruel comment, every moment when I felt small, was now asking me to stay away because I was not good enough for his new family. "You are serious. You are actually telling me not to come to your housewarming because I am an embarrassment. It is not like that, Bruce. You know I love you. But Sarah's family, they just move in different circles. They might not understand your lifestyle. My lifestyle. As if being a mechanic, someone who worked with his hands and took pride in honest labor, was something shameful. As if the fact that I chose to learn a trade instead of drowning in college debt made me less worthy of respect." I thought about all those nights after Dad died when Jake and I would sit on the back porch talking about our dreams. He wanted to climb the corporate ladder. I wanted to open my own garage someday. Maybe restore classic cars. Back then, he told me my dreams were just as valid as his. Now apparently they made me unsuitable company for his future in-laws. "Fine," I said quietly. "I get it. Enjoy your party. Bruce, come on. Do not be like this." But I had already hung up. I sat there in my garage, surrounded by the tools and projects that brought me joy, feeling smaller than I had since I was that 12-year-old boy watching his father's casket being lowered into the ground. The next few days passed in a blur of work and restless sleep. I kept replaying the conversation, wondering when exactly I had become someone my brother was ashamed of. We had grown apart since he started his corporate job 3 years ago, but I never imagined he saw me as a liability. By Friday, I had made my decision. I was going to that party. Jake was still my brother, and I was not going to let his fiancée's family intimidate me into hiding. I spent extra time cleaning up the toolkit I had bought, wrapping it carefully in simple brown paper. I pressed my best button-down shirt and put on the only pair of dress pants I owned. As I drove toward their new neighborhood Saturday evening, I practiced what I might say to Sarah's family. I would be polite, respectful, and prove that success was not just measured by degrees on a wall or the size of your bank account. The house was everything I expected and more. Modern architecture with clean lines, a perfectly manicured lawn, and luxury cars lining the circular driveway. I parked my old pickup truck at the end, feeling like it looked as out of place as I felt. Jake answered the door wearing a crisp white shirt and designer jeans. His smile was forced nervous. "Bruce, you came." "Of course I came. You are my brother." Sarah appeared beside him, her blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a dress that probably cost more than I made in a month. She gave me a polite nod, but her eyes were cold. "Hello, Bruce. How nice that you could make it." The house was filled with people I did not recognize, all dressed in that effortless way that screamed money. Crystal glasses clinked, expensive wine flowed, and conversations buzzed about stock portfolios and European vacations. Jake led me toward a group near the fireplace. "Everyone, this is my brother Bruce, doctor." Patricia Williams turned toward me first. She was a tall, elegant woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to dissect everything they looked at. "Bruce, how lovely to meet you. Sarah has told us so much about Jake's family. What do you do for work?" "I am a mechanic. I specialize in classic car restoration." Her smile became even more polite, which somehow made it colder. "How interesting. That must be very hands-on work." David Williams stepped forward, extending a manicured hand. He was exactly what I expected from a high-powered attorney: expensive suit, confident posture, and a handshake that lasted just a beat too long, as if he were establishing dominance. "David Williams, I understand you did not attend college." The question hung in the air like smoke. "No, sir. I went straight into an apprenticeship after high school. Learned from some of the best mechanics in the state." Jessica, Sarah's younger sister, laughed from behind her wine glass. She looked like a younger version of her mother, all sharp angles and sharper words. "Well, not everyone is cut out for higher education. Some people are more suited for manual labor." I felt my jaw clench, but I kept my voice steady. "I enjoy what I do. There is something satisfying about taking something broken and making it run better than it ever did before." "I am sure there is, doctor," Patricia said in that tone people use when they are being polite to children. "It is admirable that you are trying to make the best of your situation." Sarah was standing close to Jake, and I caught her whispering something in his ear. Whatever she said made him nod and look uncomfortable. He was supposed to be defending me, standing up for his brother like he always had. Instead, he was nodding along with his fiancée while her family slowly picked me apart. The conversation moved on to topics I could not contribute to: summer homes in the Hamptons, private schools for their future children, investment strategies. I stood there feeling invisible, holding my carefully wrapped gift and wondering why I had thought coming here was a good idea. That is when I heard Jessica talking to a group of her friends near the kitchen island. She was not bothering to lower her voice. "Some people just are not cut out for success," she was saying, glancing in my direction. "They get comfortable in their little bubble and never push themselves to achieve anything meaningful." "Doctor." Patricia joined the conversation, her surgical precision extending to her words. "It is admirable that he is trying, but let us be realistic. Not everyone has the drive or intelligence to excel in today's competitive world." David Williams raised his glass slightly. "The world needs people to do the simple jobs. Someone has to fix the cars while the rest of us run the world." They were talking about me like I was not standing 15 feet away. Like I was some kind of charity case that Jake had brought to their sophisticated gathering. But the worst part was watching my brother stand there saying nothing. Not only was he not defending me, but I saw him nod slightly when David made his comment about simple jobs. That was the moment something broke inside me. Not just my heart, but my faith in the person I had looked up to my entire life. The brother who had promised we would always stick together was now embarrassed by my very existence. I walked over to Jake, my voice quiet but firm. "I am leaving. Bruce, wait. Do not take this the wrong way." "What way should I take it, Jake?" "Your fiancée's family just spent the last 20 minutes explaining why I am not good enough to breathe the same air as them, and you stood there agreeing with them. You do not understand. It is complicated. Sarah is nervous about making a good impression, and apparently I make that impossible." Jake's face was flushed, torn between loyalty to me and his desire to keep peace with Sarah's family. "You understand, right? It is just one night." I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and realized I was seeing a stranger. The person who had taught me to throw a baseball, who had held me when I cried after Dad's funeral, who had promised that family meant everything, was now asking me to understand why I was not worth defending. "Yeah, Jake. I understand perfectly. I was heading toward the door when David Williams' phone rang. David answered the call with the confidence of a man who loved being important. David Williams speaking. David, it is Robert Thompson. I need to discuss the Morrison account changes with you. Are you available to talk? David's eyes lit up. This was clearly his boss, and he was not going to miss an opportunity to show off in front of everyone. Of course, Mr. Thompson. Actually, I am at my daughter's boyfriend's housewarming party. Let me put you on speaker so we can talk properly. The entire room fell quiet as David held up his phone with obvious pride. This was the moment he had been waiting for a chance to demonstrate his importance to everyone present. Sounds like a nice gathering, came the voice from the phone. I hope everyone is having a good time. Oh, we are, David said, gesturing grandly around the room. Just celebrating with family and friends. Sarah's boyfriend Jake just bought this beautiful house. That is wonderful. Family celebrations are so important. David was practically glowing. Mr. Thompson, you would love these people. We are all successful professionals here. My wife Patricia is one of the top cardiac surgeons in the city. My daughter Jessica works in investment banking in Manhattan, and Jake here is rising fast in his corporate career. I was standing near the door, invisible as always, just wanting to leave without causing more drama. But then David's phone camera somehow swiveled in my direction as he gestured around the room. The voice from the phone suddenly changed completely. Wait, hold on just a minute. Is that Bruce? David looked confused, following the direction of his phone camera. You mean him? That is Jake's brother. He is just a mechanic. There was a long pause. Then Mr. Thompson's voice came through crystal clear, and every word was like thunder in that silent room. Know him, Bruce, is the reason I have this job. You could have heard a pin drop. Every conversation stopped. Every glass paused halfway to lips. Dr. Patricia's mouth actually fell open. I am sorry, what David stammered. 2 years ago, my 16-year-old son Marcus was in a terrible car accident. His car broke down on Highway 63 during that ice storm. Do you remember? It was nearly midnight below freezing, and most places were closed. David nodded mutely, still not understanding. Bruce was working late at his garage when he got the call about a stranded teenager. He could have easily said it was too dangerous, too late, not his problem. Instead, he drove out in that storm, spent 3 hours fixing Marcus's car in freezing conditions, and refused to take a single penny for it. I felt every eye in the room turn toward me. Sarah's face had gone completely white. But that is not even the best part, Mr. Thompson continued. When Marcus mentioned that his dad was looking for work after being laid off, Bruce asked what kind of work I did. When I told him I was a lawyer, he immediately thought of someone who might need my skills. David's hand was shaking slightly as he held the phone. Bruce spent his own time researching your law firm, David. He called you personally and recommended me for the senior associate position. When you hired me based on his recommendation, it changed my family's entire life. I went from unemployment to the best job I had ever had. The room was so quiet I could hear the ice settling in people's drinks. But here is what really impressed me about Bruce. When I tried to offer him a finder's fee, a business partnership, anything to show my gratitude, he refused. He said he just believed I deserved the opportunity more than he needed the money. David, your boss's integrity is why you have been able to build your career at our firm. Jessica's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor. But nobody moved to clean it up. Everyone was staring at me like they were seeing a ghost. Bruce could have taken the easy money, could have leveraged that connection for his own benefit. Instead, he did what he thought was right, because that is the kind of man he is. I have been trying to find a way to properly thank him ever since. David Williams, the confident attorney who had been holding court all evening, looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Mr. Thompson, I had no idea. Well, now you do. Give Bruce my regards, will you? And tell him I still owe him dinner. A proper one this time. The call ended, and the silence stretched on forever. 25 people who had spent the evening treating me like I was beneath their notice were now staring at me with expressions ranging from shock to shame to desperate attempts at friendliness. Doctor. Patricia was the first to speak, her voice much warmer than it had been all evening. Bruce, I had no idea about your connection to David's firm. How wonderful that you were able to help. Jessica stepped forward, crunching glass under her designer heels. You know I work in finance too. We should really talk about investment opportunities sometime. Sarah was tugging on Jake's sleeve, whispering frantically in his ear. I could see the panic in her eyes as she realized how badly she had misjudged the situation. But I was done. I looked around the room at all these people who were suddenly so interested in being my friend, and I felt nothing but tired disappointment. You know what I said? My voice calm and clear. I appreciate the sudden change of heart, but I think I will pass. Dr. Patricia tried again. Bruce, please do not leave. We would love to hear more about your work. Really? Because 20 minutes ago you were explaining to everyone how admirable it was that I was trying to make the best of my situation. Jessica was telling her friends that some people just are not cut out for success. And David was raising a toast to the people who do simple jobs while the rest of you run the world. The color drained from their faces. They had forgotten that the person they were dismissing had ears. I turned to Jake, who was looking at me with shame and regret written all over his face. And you stood there and let them say those things about your brother. The same brother who used to sleep in your room when he had nightmares after Dad died. The same brother who worked 2 jobs in high school to help Mom pay the bills while you focused on getting into college. Bruce, I'm so sorry. I do not know what I was thinking. You were thinking that their opinion of you mattered more than standing up for family. And you know what? Maybe you are right. Maybe we do move in different circles now. I placed the carefully wrapped toolkit on the coffee table. Congratulations on the house, Jake. I hope it brings you everything you think you want. As I walked toward the door, I could hear Sarah frantically trying to convince me to stay, Jake calling my name Dr. Patricia, attempting damage control. But I kept walking. I had spent enough years of my life trying to prove my worth to people who had already decided I was not worth their time. The weeks that followed were some of the loneliest I had experienced since Dad died. Jake called every day, sometimes twice a day, leaving voicemails that ranged from defensive to apologetic to desperate. I let them all go to voicemail. Bruce, please call me back. I know I messed up, but you are my brother. Sarah feels terrible about what happened. Her family wants to apologize. I should have stood up for you. I know that now. Please just talk to me. But I was not ready. The wound was too fresh, the betrayal too deep. Every time I thought about that night, I felt that same crushing disappointment all over again. Not just because of how Sarah's family treated me, but because of how easily Jake had abandoned me when it mattered most. I threw myself into work instead. Mrs. Henderson's Mustang was running better than ever. I had 3 other classic car projects lined up, and word was spreading about my restoration work. People were driving from 3 counties over to have me work on their vehicles. One afternoon, while I was installing a new transmission in a 1972 Camaro, my customer, Mr. Rodriguez, handed me a business card. Bruce, my buddy, owns a vintage car dealership in the city. He is looking for a restoration specialist. This could be big for you. I looked at the card, Classic Automotive Specialists. It was exactly the kind of opportunity I had been dreaming about for years. He wants to meet with you next week. Apparently, word has gotten around about your work. Mrs. Henderson has been telling everyone about what you did with her car. That evening, I sat in my small apartment above the garage and really thought about my life for the first time in weeks. I had been so focused on the hurt Jake had caused me that I had almost missed the good things that were happening. My business was growing. My reputation was spreading. People who actually mattered, people who valued quality work and honest character, were seeking me out. The meeting with Classic Automotive Specialists went better than I could have imagined. They offered me a partnership deal that would allow me to keep my current garage while also working on high-end restorations for collectors and museums. It was the opportunity I had been working toward my entire career. 3 weeks after Jake's party, he showed up at my garage unannounced. I was closing up for the day when I heard his car pull into the parking lot. He looked exhausted, older somehow, like the weight of what had happened was finally hitting him. I know you do not want to see me, he said before I could speak, but I need to say this. What I did that night was unforgivable. I let you down in the worst possible way. I kept working, not looking at him. Yeah, you did. Sarah and I broke up. That made me look up. What? After what happened with Mr. Thompson's call, after seeing how her family treated you and how I just stood there, I realized something. If I marry someone who makes me ashamed of my own brother, then I am not the man Dad raised me to be. Jake sat down on an overturned crate, his expensive clothes getting dirty, but he did not seem to care. I told Sarah that my family comes first always. If she could not accept you, then she could not accept me. Her family's reaction when they found out about your connection to David's boss just proved how shallow they really were. I set down my wrench and really looked at my brother. The corporate polish was still there, but underneath it I could see the boy who used to build blanket forts with me. I lost the most important relationship in my life because I was too worried about impressing people who did not matter. Jake continued. I chose their approval over your dignity, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. We sat in silence for a while, the familiar sounds of the garage settling around us. Finally, Jake spoke again. I heard about the partnership offer from Classic Automotive. That is incredible, Bruce. I am so proud of you. How did you hear about that, Mrs. Henderson? She told Mom, and Mom told me. She also told me that you have been fixing her car for free for the past 2 years because she reminds you of Grandma. I shrugged. She is good people. You are good people, Bruce. You always have been. I just forgot that for a while. 6 months later, Jake and I were working side by side in my expanded garage. The partnership with Classic Automotive had taken off beyond my wildest dreams. I was restoring cars for collectors across the country, and Jake had decided to leave his corporate job to help me run the business side of things. You know, Jake said as he handed me a socket wrench, I never thanked you properly for what you did for Mr. Thompson. You do not need to thank me for doing the right thing. But that is exactly why I need to thank you. You did not see it as an opportunity for yourself. You saw someone who needed help, and you helped them. That is who you have always been. We had talked through everything over the past months. The hurt was still there, but it was healing. Jake had proven through his actions that he remembered what family meant. He walked away from a life that required him to be ashamed of me, and he chose to build something new with me instead. The garage door chimed, and Mrs. Henderson walked in with a plate of her famous chocolate chip cookies. How are my favorite boys doing today? Just fine, Mrs. H, I said, accepting the plate gratefully. How is the Mustang running like a dream? My late husband would have loved how you brought his car back to life. After she left, Jake and I sat on the tailgate of my truck sharing cookies and watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. I learned something that night, I said. Real success is not about impressing people who have already decided you are not worth their time. It is about staying true to your values even when others cannot see your worth. Jake nodded. And I learned that the most important validation comes from the people who actually know you, not from strangers who judge you based on your job title or bank account. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jake asked, Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Mr. Thompson had not called that night? I thought about it. Honestly, I think it would have been better in the long run. That call did not change who I was or what I was worth. It just forced them to see what was already there. The real question is, would you have eventually realized what you were choosing, or would you have kept choosing their approval over our relationship? Jake was quiet for a long moment. I like to think I would have come around eventually. But I am grateful I did not have to find out. The truth is, that night taught me something I had never understood before. When people show you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. But also remember that people can change, grow, and choose differently when they realize what they are losing. The most painful betrayals often come from the people we trust most, but they also create opportunities for the deepest kind of growth. Sometimes losing someone's approval is the best thing that can happen to you because it forces you to find your worth in the right places. I never heard from Sarah or her family again, which was perfectly fine with me. But I did get a letter from Mr. Thompson a few months later thanking me again and letting me know that David Williams had become one of the hardest working attorneys at their firm. Apparently that night had been a wake-up call for him too. These days, when people ask me about success, I tell them it is not about the size of your house or the letters after your name. It is about being able to look at yourself in the mirror and knowing that you treated people with dignity, that you stood up for what was right, and that you never compromised your character for anyone's approval. Sometimes the people who should believe in you the most are the ones who test your faith in yourself the hardest. But maybe that is exactly when you discover who you really are and what you are truly capable of achieving. What do you think? Have you ever been in a situation where family made you question your worth? Let me know in the comments below. If this story reminded you that your value does not depend on other people's approval, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Share this with someone who needs to remember that real success comes from staying true to yourself even when the people closest to you forget your value. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your worth was never up for debate in the first place.